Hi there, this is Jim the Keys bartender coming to you from Moon Bay in Key Largo, and we're back again with the two stalwarts here. Joel's all recovered from, we won't get into that right away. It wasn't, we have confirmed that it wasn't the coronavirus. It could have been. Was it a coronavirus? Meaning, did you have too many coronas? You are from Spain.
Yeah.
Joel and Jack here.
Something else that a corona means.
It's also around the sun. The corona.
All right. Yeah.
That's
right.
Me not
that's
being
right.
a scientist, I am so. It's so sad. Yeah. It's so sad you didn't know that. Corona is it the outermost layer of the sun?
Yeah, more or less.
Think? Okay.
More or less.
You're guessing.
Yeah.
What?
More or less.
We'll get layer. Yeah. You said Jack said
It could be.
Must have been.
I mentioned I mentioned the topic, and you said maybe we should start something a little more lighter.
Well, I'll tell you.
This is Jack.
Joel and I, when we're in the pool and he's got his noodle, we make all kinds of observations. And
Wait. Okay. You know, maybe the listeners. The noodle is a flotation device that Joel uses, so. We check explicit on the show,
Yeah.
So
Okay.
they may infer that he is semi-exposed.
No, it's not that. He's
Everything.
exposed in all other ways.
He's
but
exposed.
Not that way.
You know, if you're going to do anything, go all the way.
Yeah.
You have it all hanging out.
No semi.
I think you'd be kicked out of Moon Bay if you did that. I wanted to talk
Might be
about
worse.
that.
I think there's rules against that.
Public.
That's frowned upon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
You
like
know, it is kind of hypocritical. Women can't bare their nipples, but you guys can walk around
well,
all
they
the
can
time.
in Spain.
We're not
Yeah.
talking about Spain right now. We're talking about Moon Bay.
Sorry.
We're not even talking about Key Largo.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, we're just talking about Moon Bay, the hypocritical part of it. There's places down here. There's plenty of places down here where the nipple can pop out no matter
Yeah.
what.
Yeah,
The
where?
Caribbean Club, matter of fact,
Where?
several
Name one.
times I would show up
Name one.
one night and I'd just go and dance with a woman and just pull up her top.
Yeah.
And,
Nobody.
And then I
Nobody's-
realized at that time when they pull up their top when you're dancing with them for the first time and stuff like that, how long would it take me? I said, a lot of things go through my head. I'm not reading into it that she might have an STD, but if someone that pulls their top up for someone they just met and stuff like that, they may be exposed to many more people than. And I being the hypocrite I would think that I needed to get some more protection.
You don't get an STD from exposing yourself, though.
No, I figure later on I was going to.
Yeah.
I see what.
And you might
I
figure.
I played the
I got
tape
it.
forward,
I got it.
Joel. I played the tape forward.
You might figure you're not the first.
I'm not talking
one.
about that. I'm not the first
I just-
ship that docked in that
No,
port.
no.
Just
No, I'm not. That is the wrong. You know,
know.
When this event happens, how long is she allowed to keep herself exposed before somebody says something or she
at the
involuntarily
Caribbean Club,
do-
I don't think they make a big deal about
So
it.
you could dance a whole dance that way.
I depend on the time of night, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Get it time of night. I've never seen. Just they don't kick you out.
Yeah.
Or just pull it.
They look
flash
the
you and
other
stuff
way.
like that.
Yeah.
And they used to do it at the Caribbean Club and not the Caribbean Club. I said the Caribbean Club. Gilbert's.
Oh, really?
All the time. Yeah, they just pull it. Pull it down, pop it out. And I guess some women view it as the magic of the boob that it's going to. I mean, I've seen enough of them that it's not going to really sway me either way. There's some, and really one, in context, just seeing one
Doesn't do it.
doesn't do it. There's
Yeah.
a symmetry to it, and I hate to say that because that is kind of that's insensitive right there. But to see it in context or seeing it just pulled out of his shirt or pulled up like the Girls Gone Wild videos and stuff like that. Were you a fan? Are you either of you a fan of Larry David?
Oh God, yes.
When he calls up for it, he does the voiceover and he calls up. He goes, "Oh yes, I'd like to call up. I hear you have a tape on sale for those college girls. They're kind of going wild and stuff like that." And he's ordering it. He's ordering it for his buddy Jeff. And yeah, and I just but
Jeff's the best character on there.
Jeff Garland, yeah. But just the idea that in the beginning, I guess when I was younger, when the boobs did pop out, that there was some promise of something additional happening. But I realized it could be. It really didn't mean anything at the time, and so when I do, I don't make a big deal about it. I don't see
Well, you
it.
know, when you go to Vegas and you go to the topless chorus girls and stuff, after 5 minutes, you don't even notice it. And they do the whole show topless.
Yeah.
You know, you don't even, it's just part of the show. It's just like, it doesn't matter.
Yep. I mean, there's plenty of places down here. They go, they're just completely nude down here. So they're, I've been
Good to
many
know.
places.
Well,
yeah.
Good to
You
know.
never been out to one of those places down here?
Not down here. I mean, you know.
In Spain.
No.
In Spain, it doesn't matter because on the
Yeah.
beach, they're.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's
European.
total nudity. Do they do total nudity there?
College buddies that got kicked out of a bar on the block in Baltimore. So there.
That was a long
They
time
got kicked
ago.
out for
Yeah, we did. A bunch of us. Grabbing, you know.
Well, that's kind of invasive, don't you
that
think?
is invasive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were college kids, so.
Yeah, well, that was a long
I guess
time
it's a
ago.
different
Grabby,
time,
grabby.
and I don't
Yeah.
mean it. I mean, years ago they used to rape and pillage, so I guess it's a little improvement going to grab. We've come a long way, baby.
Oh, yeah, we
so
really
we go like
have.
this.
We don't
I don't
rape and pillage
remember.
anymore.
I don't ever remember reaching out when I in the '80s. I see a girl's any part go by and just. But then
Grab
again,
it.
maybe when I was
Yeah.
super intoxicated, I could have done that.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Well, that was the problem. I wasn't the grab.
You were the grabby.
I wish.
Were you being grabbed?
I wish. But
Were you
no,
touched inappropriately, Joel? Yeah, that nervousness
that's
that someone
his
may have been.
problem. That's
many
his problem.
times, many times.
I was going to broach
crave
later
that.
that I was
I
going to
crave
ask
that.
you about uncomfortable topics.
Yeah.
And I didn't know
Yeah.
if you want to go, but you just went in there with that.
Yeah.
And you
My
admitted it.
favorite trick used to be like the double arm casts.
No.
And like, oh, excuse me, I have a itch down, you know, if you could be so kind as to like just give me a
Really?
little scratch.
Okay.
That really works. That really works.
You know, I guess it started changing in the '80s because it's funny the things guys were doing it to other guys then. They weren't. I'm not talking about necessarily anything touchy or anything like that. They would do the watch or a broken thumb. You ever hear of that routine?
What's that?
The broken thumb or the watch.
I haven't heard of that.
No.
Okay. Well, I long-time listeners, it may have heard on I had friends. They would you go into their dorm room or actually in a room, and I'm going to try to drag it out as long as possible so people get out of earshot. So
Well, she
they
might
would
listen
take
to it.
they would take their penis, and well, actually, the first thing is they hold their hand down near their waist, and they'd have some. They'd hold it and then pretend to be bowing down in pain, and they go, "Listen, I think I broke my thumb. Can you take a look at it?"
Oh, jeez.
and someone would get down there and take a look, and all of a sudden, the guy's dick would be out, and you'd be, 6 inches from it, and that's not a good place to be with that.
Yeah.
And then another one says, "Hey, I got a new watch," and why would you be holding your watch near your zipper?
Yeah.
But they would. One guy who was really good artist because he took
Sounds
it,
like
he
magic.
flattened it around his wrist. He pulled it around the wrist, and he drew a face of a watch and stuff like that on it. You're looking at it, and says, "What's this light pink watch?" Skinny, and then you go, "Skinny watch." It was like
Skinny watch.
Skinny watch. I said, "Why are you wearing a lady's watch?" Oh, it's a lady's watch because you know what I'm saying. At a
Yeah.
thin wristband,
Yeah.
meaning
Yeah.
okay. So
You know this.
that was the '80s what they were doing, and they still had some of the cultural things where they were probably carrying on from the '60s. Some of the
Was
songs.
this in Florida?
This was in Philadelphia.
Oh, Philly. Yeah.
So I mean, much like Baltimore, I think the culture was the same like that,
Yeah.
but it changed, and we were different. Even though our fraternity house was kind of progressive because we've had, we were kind of, we had a lot of heavy Jewish member and Gentile members, and we had different races. Not when I say different races, not just an Asian guy. We had a couple, African American guys and stuff like that, and we actually had full female members. So
In
that
a fraternity.
in a fraternity.
Wow.
Cool.
The National didn't know. The National
Yeah, I
didn't
wouldn't
know.
think so. That's
The
against the
National didn't
charter, I
know.
think.
No, but you know what? They came about in the 60s, and some of them were kind of, some people, obviously you had a big cross-section on campuses, and you had progressive people, and they're looking and said, hey, maybe, the behavior of all guys around guys, we start acting baser. You know what I mean?
Yep,
And
sure.
it did gentle our condition. That's something from Shakespeare too. It gentles your condition, meaning you think more about that. You didn't do so. When we had our rush week, it was mainly drinking heavily, but it wasn't strippers that came in and stuff like that. We didn't.
No, I'm sorry.
I mean, obviously, guys still on private level objectified women, but if you're talking about a sister and it's a sister in a fraternity, you shouldn't be. It's just like you wouldn't talk. And there was a couple guys. There was one guy who obviously was gay. I just seen he was obviously gay
in your fraternity.
In fraternity,
yeah.
And he just came out like a couple of years ago. I'm like, he just came
like
out.
Duh,
and it was like
nobody.
It was almost
really
36 years, 38 years ago, and I go, come on, really? And I go, obviously he wasn't doing that for with other brothers. So, and there were some of the guys, the sisters were dating. Actually, a couple came in because. They were a couple and they joined at the same time, which kind of would be awkward. It was like getting a job at the same place.
Were they roommates?
Everyone didn't live in the fraternity house.
Okay.
I mean, much like that. So people say, hey, Jim, the way you are, how could you be a fraternity member? I said, well, it was a different type of fraternity and stuff. And it kind of changed after that. I think they got rid of the sisterhood and stuff like that, and then they got in trouble. Then things started happening. Like they start happening. And sometimes forcing, I don't remember anybody forcing people to drink or over drink.
Yeah.
That was, we were engineering, mainly engineering, heavily engineering, to force, and you're in college, so you should know the chemistry of it, that forcing, they know about alcohol poisoning.
Yeah.
Forcing someone to drink, it's just.
No,
you did
that
offer
ever
drinks,
went
and there were
on when I
people
was
that get intoxicated. Yes,
Yeah.
But there were a lot of times when they
You're
did, they stopped. You stopped
for yourself
them to do it. They
when
don't
you
wanna,
say forcing, I think you're just meaning peer pressure. They're not actually making him hold their mouth open while they put a funnel in their mouth.
Yeah, the funnel.
Yeah, the funnel and all that.
I didn't know they were. Geez, that's
Well,
really
and it is. It's peer pressure. It's peer pressure, but it's heavier than peer pressure and stuff like that.
The quickest way to get drunk is the anal wine.
Oh yeah, because it goes directly to the bloodstream.
Bloodstream.
Well, and
So
also
much quicker.
they use. We did on a previous show too, and this thing about girls with tampons. They use tampons and put it
to get drunk.
They put it in their. Well, they don't put it in their
vagina.
They put up their anal cavity. You soak it in vodka.
Soak it in. Yeah.
That's the way guys do it too, I guess.
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah, and they what they
must
call
be naive as heck.
well, what's the one called butt chugging too? When I don't know necessarily. I don't know, man. I don't know how you would draw that in. I'm not an expert on the.
One of my buddies back when, also a psychologist and gay, and so we're sitting around one night and we're drinking, we're having some fun. He told us a story of a couple of guys that came into the hospital, and the situation was that so this was when they were using gerbils.
Yeah, with the tube, and did they inject it with cocaine?
No. But it was just a gerbil thing,
Yeah.
You just put a gerbil
in a tube
up the rectum.
Well, they didn't stick it up the rectum. They stick a plastic tube and prod the a gerbil to go up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you try to force it up there, I think you'd kill it.
You got to have it. It's got to be dilated so it can fall in.
Well,
is this done as a joke?
No,
no,
not a joke. It's pleasure.
This was
pleasure.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Because they're struggling, and
so
it's kind of cruel, though. I mean, it's kind of cruel. It is cruel. It's the epitome.
Well, the gerbil might decide he wants to eat his way out.
Well,
gerbils don't. Gerbils are mainly not carnivorous.
I'd like to tell you what happened.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I got a story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the gerbil's up there, and then they can't get the gerbil out.
Yeah, no. They can't go backwards sometimes.
Is that no reverse to a gerbil?
Sucks it up. I think they do with whenever they get an object stuck. I mean, there's a whole. You could Google the New England Journal of Medicine about things that were. We did a whole show. We did a whole show of things that were removed because what happens if if you lose, that's the reason why
Yeah.
when they make those things for people, they got a stopper on the end.
Yeah.
You know,
you
it
mean
just
anal
doesn't-
plugs?
So it doesn't.
Anal plugs?
Yeah, it'll make a stop or whatever. Dildos out,
Yeah,
things
so
like
it doesn't
go all the way in and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Or you get something to pull it back out
Yeah.
with. So
Okay,
which
so-
makes
so-
perfect sense. But, you know, some people in the heat of the moment, you know, they see a little but they had their real weird stuff, a light bulb.
Yeah.
That was really
That's-
I mean, we
that's-
always think of light bulbs because light bulbs, they got the shards of glass and stuff like that. And I'm
Shit-
still to this day,
Shit
people
for
that
brains,
do
I think it's called.
What is it called?
Shit for brains.
No, you know, just think
Well,
about
who's gonna
it.
put a light
Think
bulb
about
up there?
think about people. Come on, it happens in houses and colleges and stuff like that. People with cue balls and stuff like that. When the guy puts a cue ball, you know, you hear about you can actually get the cue ball into your mouth, but once it's in there,
Can't get it out.
Can't get it out.
I'm
because
talking
of
about- I'm talking about glass, fragile glass.
Yeah.
yeah.
Hi.
So
We're doing a podcast.
yeah. So yeah. No, that's
Yes,
good.
so where were we?
I don't think we want to be on this topic. People can always close off.
No, you were talking about your friend and stuff like
Yeah,
that. But it
yeah.
changed. It's changed
So-
from the 80s to now,
well-
and there's luckily from the 60s to the
I can't
80s.
seem to finish my story.
No, we're going to be quiet and let you
You
finish.
were telling this
He's
story
got
about your friend?
Yeah,
Was that-
yeah,
okay.
the gerbil.
The
No,
gerbil.
the friend told me the story. He wasn't involved directly, but he had a hospital connection because it's a psychologist. So this is one of the cases that happened. And so these two guys, they're in the privacy of their own bedroom or whatever, and they can't get the gerbil out. So one of the guys decides to light a match to take a look up there. And
It
ignites,
sounds like a joke.
wait a second, ignites bowel gas and blasts the gerbil out. Which
No,
bangs-
wait.
No, it
Yeah.
can't do
Well,
that because
I
it's
would
Hold on a
blast
moment.
it the other way.
Outside.
Yeah, yeah.
Hold on. Hold on a moment.
Oh, unless you're lighting it from side to Dwadnum on the other side.
They're just not going to let me tell this.
Okay. Let's see. Blast the gerbil.
We'll shoot
out.
the heck out of it after you're done. Okay, we'll be quiet.
Yeah. So the thing comes blasting out, knocks this guy holding the match, looking in the forehead, concusses him, and he passes out. Anyway, they get an ambulance in there to take both of them into the ER.
I think I know
And,
the end of
go
the
ahead.
story. Let me see. The paramedics are coming down. They're carrying the guy down the steps and stuff like that. They tell him what happened, and they drop him again.
Broke his leg.
Because like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's an urban myth.
Yes.
It's an old urban myth. Because someone said someone said that
um,
about the lighting their farts or something like that, and then they
Oh, I know
drop
guys
them like
used
that.
to do that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
you know, I would have thought the paramedics would have taken the gerbil to the emergency room because he was in worse shape than the people.
Oh,
didn't
Pet
have-
He was an
hospital.
innocent victim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here's that.
They didn't have a small enough.
Gurney?
Yeah.
I did. You could tell we were talking
We're going
to
to need a little
to
extra help on
a
this
psychologist, not a material engineer or chemical engineer. You go, wait a second. How would the gas get through if he's able? If he has that much gas, there was probably that would be the fatal complay. The gerbil would be out no
I'll
matter
tell
what.
you what would happen. The gas was ignited, but there was gas in front of the gerbil, too.
So it would have fired
the
up.
flame went up and then it went retro.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Force would do it.
Exactly. That's my
It's
imagining
gas.
of how this works.
No, but I'll tell you the reason why that doesn't happen because it only when it escapes it does it ignite. Outside, it doesn't ignite inside the body. When people do their the thing when they're lighting the
there's
thing
no
is
oxygen.
not going up. So yeah.
Anyway, it's a great story, Joe.
It is a good
suppose.
story.
Well, so it actually.
And no
It's a-
gerbils were
it's
hurt
a-
in this
it's-
story. So I just
in the
when I
filming
started
of
with
this-
that in the
in the
filming of
film-
this thing.
No,
So,
but
yeah,
the thing,
and
you know,
I
it's
thought
not-
we
it's
talked
not
about a
just
higher-
It's not just a story.
higher level.
It's actually a cartoon when you think about it, and especially if you've been, you know,
That's worse than the Far Side.
if you've been toking up or having a drink or something.
So-
it's a pretty good story, and you know,
I can
feel free to
understand why
use
you
it
guys didn't want to go with
anytime.
my topic in the beginning because it's a little dry.
Well, I had no idea he was going to go over here and jot gerbil stories like that.
Yeah.
My gosh.
I thought you'd be a little more
Jeez.
You want to get
sensitive
jolly,
to the
man.
LGBTQT community. LGBTQ.
No, QT, isn't it?
QT, yeah.
X.
LBG.
Yeah,
X,
QT.
and there's an X too.
What's the X now? What's that?
I don't know. Trisexual.
Extra. Yeah, there's
that,
one where
don't
you got a there's pansexual.
You know about trisexual?
Try anything. Yeah, I heard that.
No.
What? Tell me.
Yeah, what's that? I never heard of it.
I'm just going to let it hang there. What could
just like you're a noodle in the pool there, Joel.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to take a pause right now, and we're going to come right back.
If you want to get your information about the Florida Keys straight from the locals who live here and the ones who love it here, we've got you covered. Visit 43keys.com as your source for everything Florida Keys. Sign up for our newsletter and you'll always be up to date on all the Keysy stuff that's going on down here. Go to 43keys.com. That's the number 4, the number 3, keys.com, and sign up today.
Oh, we're right back. See? It wasn't. It was painless.
I
right?
doubt if you have any more listeners after this story. That we just
it's not
did.
While we're recording this. We're not doing it live.
Okay.
I'm concerned about the
flatulence.
The Wi-Fi connection, actually. In that. I didn't think we were just talking about farts and stuff like that. If I had two well-educated gentlemen here, and I'm the bartender, and the psychologist that lives part of the year in Spain tells a joke about a gerbil. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and speaking about cultures and things, last week
a title for this could be
what?
Something like a how to move body gas around.
Okay, well, there's a certain way. That's not exactly why I came here to talk about this thing.
Yeah.
Last week we were talking about how everything was different and how everything's the same. Yeah. And I have a friend who's going over to Cuba who he just bought a house there. He just bought a bride.
Go into detail. He bought a bride. Just mail order?
What are they going for now?
How do you do that?
You know what I mean. When you go to a more... a country that has more a developing country. Let's call Cuba's a developing country, and someone with some means. Even I over there would be considered a person of means with my income level. If I'm able to maintain my income level while I'm over there, yes, that would.
You'd be a catch.
Yeah.
Okay.
And plus, because I am a catch.
Well, I didn't want to say that because this is a radio thing here.
No, but
I.
And I'm not critical of the man being the age difference or anything like that. But the thing that and I don't think he'd have a problem with talking about, they said how everything was different over there. And actually, culturally, I think in the United States, there's as much deviation in the United States as if you're talking about regular pop culture here, where in the 50s it would be the Norman Rockwell picture idea of the family, the parents and the two
kids,
1/3 kids, and all that stuff,
yeah.
and that's the model for it. But it's the middle or the median or the ideal of it, and then it moves and it deviates from there everywhere. So the general culture over in Cuba, I think, probably looks similar to when you go to the upscale, more like South Beach, closer to South Beach than it is to Boston. And if you go to poorer sections of Miami, you'd see something that's more kind of like middle class, not the destitute necessarily, because the destitute Cubans probably look a little different. But I don't think when you talk about familial relationship and stuff like that, my wife said something like says, "Oh, Cubans really love their kids." And I go, wait a second, who doesn't fucking love their kids? I mean, many societies, if your society really doesn't value your children, your society doesn't usually survive.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because if you're a poor country, they just die, because if you didn't value kids, if you're starving, I get fed first. You always value your children. They the places and they have they have many of them. They feed them, and obviously they have high. Some of them have high. What do they call that? They're talking death rate.
Infant mortality.
Higher infant mortality than the U.S. But culturally speaking, they speak another language. They have different food, maybe. The government's slightly different. More of an authoritarian regime, but the interpersonal things have to be almost basically the same.
I think the Hispanic culture is more family oriented than the typical American family. That's what I think. I mean, you go to poor countries that are Spanish, Hispanic, the kids and they have their parents and grandparents all living together, and they have their relatives all in the same area, and they're not as fractured.
Well, I mean, if you talk to the rural community and stuff like that, that same thing. My cousins, through my grandmother, their families were that way, where the houses, a couple of houses down, that's where the kids run it on. Now. I know. Well, I mean, that's the nature of a developing country, not a nature of a culture. Really, is it? If you think about it, in almost every developing country, China, when you see the classic picture of China from the late 1800s was The Good Earth by Charles Buck, where it was matriarchal society, and everyone that was all the family stayed together. You didn't have a retirement community or anything like that. You didn't have to worry about that because they're the people that took care. So as they developed, right? So if we were in certain parts of the United States where it's just the same setup, they're speaking a little different language, they're doing a different. You have the Amish live that way, right?
Right.
The radical Mormons. With a couple extra wives, maybe, but they. But
it works for them.
Yeah, it works for them.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it works for them. So when he said that, I go, we're not like if you look at the basic, the doctor and all that, the doctor over there or some well-to-do high party official in Cuba, they're probably similar to a regular American lifestyle.
So when you were talking about your friend who is a lot older than this girl that he's going to marry, did he meet her as a visitor in Cuba, or?
I think they have setups where the people can meet, and they decide. A woman decides she wants to change her financial circumstances, and they realize that the attributes they're born with are a commercial commodity.
Well, I don't think Ivanka Trump would have done anything like that.
No.
Wouldn't happen in this country.
You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
That's just like if you actually to better her condition, she went to middle class. And there's a whole show on it. We did a whole show on it, the 90 Day Fiance. If you ever got a chance to watch these things,
really?
It is. You've seen it?
No, never.
I don't want to. I hate to say pathetic because it. I think with the development of technology and the ability to get whatever you want from wherever you want, you have connections. But you're able to make connections with people. Like if I decided, really, there is a dark net where if I decided, really wanted to search real hard for someone that would be willing to sell part of their body.
Like a kidney.
Well, I'm getting even more base because there was a German thing where a person wanted to be eaten alive. He found someone else. Now, in the old days, pre-bulletin boards and newspaper classified ads and things like that, the crazy could not connect.
Right.
It just happened on its own. It happened isolated. Very well. You didn't have like the Night Stalker thing in L.A.
They've always had their ways of connecting.
Well, I know, but how would you connect, Joel? If you're in Seattle, and someone's in Provo, Utah, and they had the same deviated affinity for something, there's almost an impossibility that they would always date up, unless. No, there's no way you could connect. How would you connect? How possible? Let's say it's 1860.
Well, my mentor.
How would you connect?
I'm saying my mentor in the penitentiary was like, and we're talking about things like sexual deviancy and that sort of thing, and how would you find somebody who's going to get down with you with a light bulb up your rectum? And he was like, I don't know how they do it, but they find each other.
Wait. What year are you talking about?
70.
Okay. Well, then they had when in the 70s, like we know in the 50s and stuff, you had there was a small out the community, a small community that was out
everywhere,
because
yeah.
it was illegal. It was illegal. It was called it was sodomy. The sodomy laws were very strict, but then you had a very the ones, it was so illegal that the people that had a proclivity to want to try couldn't do it because they worried about the repercussions. Yeah. And the ones that had really strong proclivities for it went to these places, and they had to pretty much do what I think the opening up and making it more
available,
acceptable
yeah.
has, I hate to say, normalized, has regularized the relationship. So when there's gay couples that are boring gay couples out there. Boring gay couples. They go to Disney World. They go to orchid museums and stuff like that. They're just like that. But in the old days, it had a tendency to have to be a little more extreme because of where they had to go and what they had to risk. And nowadays, they do fall into the boring, and things like that.
That's true. I mean, they've been mainstreamed.
Mainstream, yeah, and then you have the same like the extreme heterosexual people where they have the started with the key parties and stuff like that, where they started, but then they got more fetish people, and they're out there. There's shoe people, feet people. There's furries,
whatever you can think of.
Yeah, so that built. What I'm saying is that
it's been done.
This has a community, so you can put up.
It hasn't been done yet.
You can put in there, and people. You can put in a little search engine and go, people that like dogs.
Yeah.
And then people that like dogs sexually.
Yeah.
And there's one, and
it gets more interesting.
Man and Boy Love Association, right? How about that?
If you plug in dogs who like people.
Yeah.
Sexually.
Yeah. Well,
you get a little.
In the 80s, I know that existed because an officer, when I was a midshipman, an officer made a joke about one of the midshipmen looked like Opie, a young Opie, like a 13-year-old Opie, and he was from Wales. His name was, I don't want to say his name.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
He looked like this, and he goes, the National Man and Boy Love Association. And he goes like this. He goes, He goes, midshipman, you look like the poster boy for NAMBLA. Like that. And looked at it, and we go, what the hell is NAMBLA? We said, it was 1983.
Yeah.
And we go, what's NAMBLA? And actually, pre-bulletin board, internet bulletin board, pre-internet at all, before DARPA came out and all that.
So was this kid made the cabin boy for the captain?
It was in the butt of all the jokes. He looked like Opie.
Yeah, I know, but that'd be a cabin
Opie
boy.
was not an attractive young boy.
No, but he was a young boy.
He was a red. He was a red. I'm not saying a red isn't attractive. I'm just saying he was.
He had a distinct look. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, there were other good-looking midshipmen. I think if they were looking for that thing. Yeah. But I don't think these guys that was their. No, there were better places for them to go than the University of Pennsylvania Navy ROTC unit because there was a lot of women in that area.
Just for some balance here in the conversation.
How do we get there from NAMBLA?
I have a buddy 7 or 8 years ago who transed from man to woman.
I was assuming you were going to go there.
Yeah.
I was hoping it wasn't like man to cat because people do that. Okay, go.
They do that?
Well, they do the cosmetic surgery to look like cat. Okay.
It's really hard to get the pelt right.
Okay, you're right. Okay. I'm throwing the ball back in your court.
You can do the ears.
So
yeah.
Anyway, this guy, 67 years old.
He trans when he was 67 years old?
Yeah. Like an old buddy of mine from graduate school. And a wonderful poet. And everything, he himself was a performance piece in everyday life.
Okay. I understand.
So he makes this transition, and he's never been happier. And that's just.
Was it hard for him to do that? And I don't mean that, and no pun intended.
No.
Did he go full on? Did he have the operation and all that? Did he have to pump him full of estrogen and all that? And,
yeah, that's how you begin.
I know, but normally at that age, right?
Well, look at Jenner.
Doesn't the levels?
Look at Jenner.
What?
How old was Jenner? 66, something
Was
like that.
Jenner 66?
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like late
76. He was so he was 50. He was in 76, so he would have been born around 1950, and he would be 70 now. Okay, yeah, that would be. Oh wow! So
That's a good argument for.
I know, but
Like,
if you were going
got
to
to
change,
do what they
if
got
it-
to do.
Yeah,
and
it's
let them be who they want to be.
yeah. The decision. It's like for children to decide.
Well, that's a whole different.
Yeah, I know that would be a difficult one for people that aren't trans to make the decision
Nobody can make
for
the
someone.
decision
I know, but they're
early.
when they're you're suggesting when they reach a majority, 18 or 21 or
No, not even that.
No, they start them. and they're just don't
No,
start
no,
letting
you-
them dress the way they
maybe
want.
even the
oh,
age.
dressing is
But role play too.
No, but
Yeah.
with the age of reason, maybe a kid can have some say in what they want to do and what they want to be. And I was just reading an article where
when you
parents
get elective
decided,
surgery.
I'm gonna-
I think that's probably
It's
the one.
irreversible. Yeah.
I'm going to let
No,
them
but
go.
when you're any elected, like if you're a minor, I guess it would be the point would be when they can get elective surgery and you say, I want to get a breast augmentation, as let's say a female, if it's 18 or 21, then
Yeah. It's their choice.
then
They're
it's their
adults.
choice. So you can make that a hard and fast rule, or you can make it a little more difficult. It's such a hard thing because you're making a decision of someone that's not. You don't experience that.
So these
Right?
parents had an ambiguous, a child with ambiguous
Genitalia.
genitalia.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hermaphrodite.
And not quite. I mean, there are all varieties of that.
Oh, okay.
So, and the doctors were recommending, okay, let's do it right now. We'll just reduce the size of the clitoris.
Oh, really? Making a decision themselves?
Yeah, the doctors and the parents turned it down, and the kid is very happy now being one of, I guess they call them intersex. And at some point, the kid is going to make some decisions. You know, because it's first of all, it's not
It
just
depends.
external.
I would have to
It has.
say.
It has to. It.
I have
Sometimes
to
they
say
have
it depends on your
attributes.
socioeconomic.
This kid,
because if you're not in the
this
right,
kid might have the internal genitalia. Also, you have to consider that.
Well, they can,
Then it gets really.
you're right. You're right. You
smushed
mess
up.
it up. You know, it
Yeah.
could be they can have
Really,
their child. Do they have a
even a
womb
like a-
too? Do they have
Well,
a womb?
I don't know
uterus.
the specifics,
Yeah.
Or
but those are the
ovaries.
possibilities.
Yeah.
Whatever you could imagine it could be, as a freak of nature. But
See, that you don't want to. It's funny. That's not something you normally would hear
you
from
don't
someone
say
saying.
freak of nature.
It would be, and I wouldn't say aberration, a variation. How about variation?
That's better than freak.
Variation.
That is
It's a variant. It's a variant, and I don't even want to use norm. It's there's a range. There's a larger mean. The larger mean of variance is the two sexes, male and female.
Yeah, that's the polar opposites.
The polar
But
opposite.
the whole
And then
thing
it-
is a continuum.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
the
a
meaner-
lion's share of people do happen to fall on the extreme ends, but that doesn't make them any less.
yeah, the meaner it gets, the better I like it.
the meaner it gets.
Yeah,
And you mean that in the
in the
so,
arithmetic
arithmetic
sense. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So, but culturally, like if you grew up, depending on where you grew up, right? If you're in, let's say, I guess that would be if in the what happened if that happened in the Amish community?
I would imagine they would.
They don't do the operation; they just let them. I mean, they are what they are, right?
I would think they might be shunned because they're not normal.
They don't. I don't think the Amish shun over your
Physical.
physical. I think it's more of a spiritual way. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think they shun people that are
What about gay people?
are
They're
developmentally disabled. Is that
Amish.
correct?
No, they wouldn't do that. But
Do we say that now?
about the
Developmentally
sexual
challenged. What sexual? Oh,
what if somebody in the community was a
well, you know the
child
American
molester or
Indians
something?
didn't do it. They just
No,
had.
they
had like
celebrated them.
they have like
They were shamans.
extra different genders and all that stuff. They didn't just have two.
Yeah, the warrior that didn't want to be a warrior wanted to be around the campfire with the women. They allowed it.
Yeah.
And they actually celebrated them because they were different. They were thought of as having both points of view, male and female.
Well, like when you're a kid in the park and you're choosing teammates for basketball. Now, are you going to choose some guy who wants to sit with the women and do the sewing to come out and play war with you?
You know what? I mean,
know?
it's so
sense.
interesting that probably isn't always the case either. Because there's someone that does enjoy that. Let's say you, there are people that are born homosexuals that make very good athletes.
We know that.
And warriors and things like that.
We know
and
that.
very,
yeah. No,
very,
but if somebody professes
that's a stereo. I think
preface
they're falling into a stereotypical way to behave.
No, a preface.
Right?
Like I don't want to go to war. I want to sit here and sew with the women. All I'm saying is the rest of the warriors would say, "Yeah, good. That's a better choice for you. We don't need you out there."
The way you describe that with a lot of traditionally, even if we talk about cultural differences, war was looked at culturally different too. Some of them were more ceremonial. War was considered a more ceremonial act than it was a real all-out affair.
Killing affair.
Yeah. And then it became more brutal in the 20s. Well, it was brutal.
No, it's always been brutal.
Well, no, but some
Crusades
of them,
were pretty
tribal.
brutal.
No, I mean some tribal conflicts are solved are resolved much less brutally.
Oh yeah.
They had their ways.
And even nowadays, there's people that can countries that do resolve their differences. With that one.
Like you're a historian, so you know that, like in medieval times, if it was worth going to war, the king would lead the troops.
Well, first of all, he had he had a suit of armor. He wore a suit of. The aristocrats wore a suit of armor that they only could afford, and the people that ended up getting maimed, they chop up the peasants. The peasants and the they were the ones that got. That's when we back to Henry V and stuff like that. When they talked about originally before the longbowmen showed up, and they had the artillery and the firepower to penetrate it, they would go to war. Drop a hat. They go, we're going to seize some territory in France. And the guys that said, we're going to take some men, we're going to raise some money, go out there and stuff. And it was a sporting event. It was like going hunting. It was like going hunting. Now, it sucked. You see those people talking about it. It sucked for the peasants when the people got levied and they had to go and fight for the Lord because they died. And when they died, their family was destitute. And a lot of times they would die.
Yeah.
They would just die. So, I mean, there was a lot more in the line. It's a total bullshit when they're saying the king led the thing. And once they started,
it's PR,
once they started getting the longbowmen and stuff like that, the king stayed way back, way in the back.
We need to be in the bunker so we can command the troops.
And that's why the generals and stuff like that, they waited French in World War
that hasn't
I,
changed.
when the French troops mutinied, and they decided, because you had in 1917, they started, prior to that, they introduced universal education, and people were just going,
I'm not buying this.
Yeah, the more educated you have, the more, and that we, here in the United States, we sell the idea of service and sacrifice and
that's
things
all
like
crap, too, because it's not for patriotism, it's for special interests.
Special interests. If you think about
interests.
every last involvement we got into is for...
They sell it as patriotism.
The last righteous one was
sort
going
of World
into
War II.
Afghanistan, and then they should have stopped out. When you took them out with
can't make any money when you stop and pull out. Come on, where are you going to sell all the weapons
it's just
to?
You made your point. You stopped and said, "We'll remove your government in there." And each time you go back, they could have went back 6 times with less loss of life.
Special forces.
No, they would have went back.
That's all they needed.
No, they would have went back and said, "Well, if you do it again, we're going to come back and get you again, and we'll get each leader." And stuff
It's still an endless war.
It would have been endless war, but it wouldn't have been
still
continuous.
is.
It wouldn't have been continuous
They should have
occupation.
done surgical strikes.
No, and wouldn't you want, if they were over here, wouldn't you want them out, even though they were?
That's where you go and do it. You go and do it, and you get out and say, "Hey, listen, the only reason we came over is you did that. We're out of here. Sort this out. Stop what you're doing." I had a friend of mine who was he went over there too, and he said, we should have declared victory, departed the field, and then let them sort it out. And yes, it could happen again. They could arise and stuff. Not that they pull another one of those things. They can pull something different. But you go back, and each time you go back, you don't do just when you're putting people on the ground. You're creating targets and you're creating resentment. You're creating commitment that you're just pouring money into it.
Civilians by drones being killed isn't exactly good either.
Question.
No.
Which side of the argument do you think Boeing or GM would fall on?
We got to protect
the
America's
drone argument.
Absolutely.
No, I don't know.
Interest, yeah.
No, they want the bombers.
Full tilt war. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got to make machines. We got to make
Absolutely.
profit.
We're the biggest arm dealer in the world.
Switzerland doesn't have that problem. What they do is
everybody's a trained sniper, and they always take out the leaders first.
Yeah.
So nobody messes with them.
Well, it's not just that. They do have a healthy. They do have a very healthy
militia,
militia or reserve force.
Yeah.
They take their weapons home and stuff like that, and they're surrounded by mountains. But we're surrounded by
oceans
and friends to the south and the north, which we could somewhat. But that's a
buffer zones. Anyway,
that's another here and there.
It's a whole other
like
topic.
But if we're not going to take care of the people that go over and then fight for whatever nebulous reason that they have, and they decide to go over, they say they're going over because he's a bad man. Well, we've had bad people all the time. They were
but
friends
if the bad
of ours
man keeps it stable, leave him alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been known to do that.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Iraq, that Saddam Hussein would have kept Iran at bay.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and they're killing each other over there just as much.
But they always have the Shiites and the Muslims and the Kurds.
Yep.
They've been doing it for millennium.
Yep.
Let them do it.
Yep.
But we can't sell them. We'll sell them weapons, right? And we send advisors, and there you go.
Yep.
Whatever.
Yeah. So, but
culture, huh?
And then you got less than 1% of serve, and they serve the interest of another 1% who gain the lion's share of the profits from it. So
absolutely,
that's my view.
Yeah.
And now, how do we get there? We were talking about your.
We're talking about culture.
Your gerbil coming earlier.
Yeah.
Your guy farting a gerbil out his ass.
And then we talked about transsexuals and people that are different and societies and social
variations.
And it's a short leap to war.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
And it's cultural, isn't it?
Because war, we're trying to impose our culture and control other countries for our interests.
What did James Brown say, right?
Huh.
Your bad self.
What is it good for?
Well.
Was it?
No, that wasn't.
No, that was Cheney. What good's all this power if you don't use it?
No, war.
What is it good for?
Absolutely.
No, that wasn't
nothing.
Brown.
That wasn't Brown. That was someone else.
Yeah. I forget who. No, that was.
That was in Jimi Hendrix.
No, I know who you mean. Baldwin.
No.
The
Baldwin?
song?
No, Baldwin. No, not the actor. The black Baldwin.
The writer.
Baldwin. Yeah.
The writer. That's James Baldwin. No, but there was a song called
The Commodores or something.
Yeah,
like that.
someone else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wilder.
It's good. It's a good song.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, we're at 47 minutes. So you did
That's it.
You did it. Yeah. And without a topic, really. What's the
when
topic?
do we expect the royalties to come in?
Yeah.
And the residuals.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't.
I'm going to pay you in seltzer water, and what are you drinking there?
Gee,
what are you drinking?
I have to get my agent, get a hold of your
Iced
agent. You're taking all this intellectual property and you're just putting it out there.
Intellectual property, that is a reach, Jack. That is such a reach. Intellectual is the last thing. There was a young lady that walked over here, and what did she say? I don't want to know what this podcast is about. I know because you heard the gerbil story.
Yeah, as soon as she heard the gerbil, and that did her in, man.
Mm-hmm.
That almost did me in. I guess kind of.
Well, you know what? No one's going to really want to talk about.
No. Let's get off of that right now.
Intellectual and palm trees is like an oxymoron.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
We're all a little slowed down here.
Well, not
necessarily
writers
true.
Get their inspiration.
And there's painters. Look at
sand,
Van Gogh. Van Gogh spent time in it. Yeah.
Monet. Come on.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
But to look at Van Gogh's stuff, you have to put on your sunglasses. It's a little too bright.
Yeah,
colors.
And I guess along the Nile.
He was feeling it. Come on.
Yeah.
So
what am I going to use for the topic? What are you going to say?
What?
Well, I'm not going to mention. I'm not even
No,
gonna put gerbil
it's
in
always
there.
spontaneous. We always get into something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we got.
We don't
it.
need to be led to be fed.
Well, I
Okay?
did bring a topic into it, and it did work.
Well, I was going to get into masks and things like that people wear, and the gay community was.
Oh, you mean the ego and its super
No,
ego
just
and
how
the id
people,
and
people are different people to different things in different circumstances, but they're neurotic and they don't know who they really are, but they're afraid to tell you who they
Isn't
really
it-
are 'cause they might
isn't-
be rejected. That kind of stuff.
Isn't Joel a man for all seasons?
He?
Well,
That's his.
Huh?
You like
Isn't
that?
he? Isn't he?
Calls.
Oh, we got to get some pictures here. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to sign off. This is. I'd like to thank Jack. Say something.
welcome.
I'd like to thank Joel.
Jim.
Yeah, and
we
Always,
thank Jim.
always a
thank
pleasure,
you. And
man.
yeah, it's my gym. My gym.
The
I'm
bartender at the
Jim.
Catch. Make sure you go down there. You have a good afternoon
good. Thank you.
Evening.
and evening. Yeah.
When I'm there,
Breakfast.
no breakfast.
No breakfast.
No breakfast at the
Well,
kitchen.
Bloody
right.
Marys, maybe.
Shit.
Yeah, if you like olives and stuff like that, that's what you're gonna have. Whatever.
I'm from
There's
Spain,
juice in
but I
there.
like olives.
Yeah, you love some
Yeah.
olives. Yeah, shit.
Yeah.
And paella and all that shit.
Mm.
Okay. Goodbye, everyone. I'm gonna cut you off.